October 31st, 1980, Chimera's Rest. The wind screamed through the trees like a warning. No one would heed. Lover's Peak was drenched in moonlight. A rusting Chevy Impala sat idling, its headlights off, music humming softly from the cassette deck. Inside, 5 teens laughed, whispered, unaware. "Did you hear that?" Jenny Marks lifted her head from Brian's shoulder, her heart knocking in her chest. Brian scoffed, "Relax, it's Halloween, the woods make noise." But then they all heard it. Something dragging, something wet. "That's not wind," muttered Cal Parker, his breath frosting the windshield. He peered outside. Darkness stared back. "The Impala's engine died. Did you—" Jenny began. "I didn't touch it," Brian whispered. In the silence that followed, a low growl rose from the forest. Slow, primal. "We need to go, now," Cal said, fumbling for the door, but the handle snapped off in his hand. Then, from the shadows, it emerged. 8 feet tall, skin like ash, claws long enough to pierce metal. Its face was almost human. It leapt onto the hood. Jenny screamed as the windshield shattered, claws punching through the glass like tissue paper. Cal kicked open the passenger door, dragging Brian and Jenny out as the others scattered into the woods. One by one, their screams echoed and vanished. Only silence remained. And blood, so much blood. 35 years ago, 5 teenagers were found torn to pieces on this very ridge. No one ever figured out what had killed them. And no one wanted to. The town buried the story like it buried the bodies, deep and with trembling hands. But tonight, something stirs once more. The forest thrashed violently against the wind as 4 teens sprinted breathlessly through the underbrush, their flashlights bobbing wildly. Leaves slashed their cheeks, branches clawed at their jackets. Behind them, nothing, and yet something. Something that breathed in slow, deep, rasping bursts. "Run!" screamed Kyle Bridges, his voice raw from shouting. He pulled Lucy Harper by the hand, her mascara running down her face, her phone long since dropped somewhere in the dark. Behind them, Aiden and Marissa stumbled through the roots and dead leaves. "Hurry!" Marissa wailed, tripping and crashing into a mossy log. Aiden yanked her up with brute strength. The ground beneath them pulsed. It wasn't possible, but it was happening. The earth throbbed like a living organ, and the sky, it was bleeding. An unnatural crimson bled through the clouds, casting a horrific light through the canopy. When finally, they reached Lover's Peak. The cliffs offered no escape, just a sheer drop into the mist below. The town twinkled faintly beneath them, like a memory they'd never reach again. Lucy crouched beneath a fallen log, curling in on herself, whispering her mother's name as tears streaked her dirt-covered cheeks. Then she heard it. The crunch of leaves, the heavy, rhythmic inhale of something not quite human. She held her breath. The silence broke with a sudden jerk. A clawed hand shot through the log above her, grabbed her by the hair, and yanked her into the open. She screamed, flailing, her eyes wide in terror as the beast lifted her effortlessly, claws inches from her throat. Its face loomed close, part man, part something else, something prime evil. But it paused. Its eyes studied her. Suddenly, the creature pulled her inches from its face, its eyes glistening like obsidian and burning with something ancient, locked with hers. Lucy couldn't move, couldn't even scream. It was as though the world had frozen around them. The wind died, the trees held their breath. In that eternal moment, something passed between them, recognition, and something much darker. The monster's pupils dilated, and Lucy's heartbeat thundered in her ears. Her body wanted to flee, but her mind was ensnared in that gaze. Trapped, then, just as suddenly, it let go. Lucy hit the ground hard, scrambling away. The creature turned, vanishing into the trees, and Lucy was left gasping, trembling, knowing something inside her had changed. Moments later, a bone-snapping crack followed by a wet, dragging shuffle. Something massive moved just beyond the tree line. Aiden yelled, pushing Marissa toward a rusted old car long abandoned at the overlook. The shadows parted. A figure stepped into the clearing. Impossibly tall, twisted, menacing. Familiar, it wore Lucy's face. Or what used to be Lucy's face. Kyle stared, heart frozen. Lucy? Her eyes glowed with inhuman hunger. Her fingers stretched into claws. Her mouth widened in an impossible grin, revealing serrated fangs. "Run," whispered the real Lucy. Or maybe it was a dream, or a memory. Kyle couldn't tell anymore. Then she lunged. Blood sprayed across the cracked windshield of the rusted car. Another victim claimed in Chimera's Rest. The road into Chimera's Rest was shrouded in mist, arching over the cracked pavement like skeletal fingers reaching for a reluctant traveler. Detective Dirk Soda leaned forward in his seat, gripping the steering wheel with white-knuckled determination. Halloween was approaching, and with it, an air of dread that hung over the town like an executioner's hood. The murder of high school senior and lead cheerleader Lucy Harper had sent the town into chaos. Her body had been discovered in her car at Lover's Peak, eviscerated in a manner eerily similar to the unsolved killings from 1980. The only problem was that no known animal or human could have done what was done to her. And there was another issue. Her boyfriend, Kyle Bridges, was missing. Dirk was a man of logic, of reason, but as he settled into his room at the Hollow Pines Motel, he couldn't shake the sensation that something was watching him. Each night, the sky above the town deepened into an unnatural crimson. It wasn't a trick of the light. It was something else. Something darker. He spent his days questioning anyone who might have a connection to Lucy. Her classmates, her teachers, the shop owners in town, all met him with the same vacant expressions, the same trembling voices. They knew something, but they were too afraid to speak. It was as if the very air of Chimera's Rest whispered threats in their ears. On the night before Halloween, Dirk returned to Lover's Peak. The air was thick with the scent of decaying leaves, the wind whispering warnings through the trees. The place was eerily silent, save for the distant rustling in the underbrush. He crouched near Lucy's abandoned car, its interior still slick with dark, dried blood. He pulled out his flashlight and swept the beam over the rocky cliffside. Then, movement. A figure stood atop the ridge, barely visible against the bleeding sky. His breath hitched as the figure stepped forward. It was Lucy. But Lucy was dead? She moved unnaturally, her limbs jerking as though she were held up by unseen strings. Her long blonde hair was matted with dried blood, her cheerleading uniform torn at the seams. Then she smiled. And that's when Dirk saw them, her teeth elongated and serrated like those of a predator. Her fingers twitched, and as she lifted them, long, curved claws extended from her fingertips, glistening in the dying light. Dirk drew his gun. He knew it was useless, but it was instinct. Lucy let out a low, guttural sound. Not a scream, not a growl, but something ancient, something that did not belong to this world. And then she turned and ran, disappearing into the thick trees beyond the ridge. Dirk chased her, crashing through the underbrush, his heart beat a war drum in his chest. He stumbled into a clearing where something far worse awaited him. More figures stood among the trees. Their eyes gleamed in the darkness, reflecting the blood-red sky. Some were young, some old, but all bore the same terrible features. Elongated teeth, gnarled claws, and eyes that seemed void of any human recognition. He understood now. It suddenly all came together in that moment. These creatures were the descendants of whatever horror had plagued Chimera's Rest in 1980, a secret hidden in the town's bloodline. A curse buried deep but never fully extinguished, and then the realization came. This was not the beginning of their return. This was their harvest. A shadow moved to his left. Dirk spun around just in time to see Kyle, or what was once Kyle, leaping toward him with outstretched claws. Dirk fired, the gunshot tearing through the trees, but it barely slowed the thing down. Desperation took hold. He sprinted back towards his car, slamming the door shut just as something heavy crashed against the metal. The creatures howled, the sound reverberating through the hollow like a morning dirge. Dirk peeled out of the clearing, his mind reeling. He needed to warn the town, to tell them what lurked just beyond their doorsteps. But would they believe him? Would they even care? Or were they too a part of this? As he sped down the darkened road, a shape loomed in his rearview mirror. Standing beneath a flickering street lamp was Lucy, watching him go. Her grin widened as she raised one clawed hand and slowly waved. Dirk's blood ran cold. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. Dirk awoke to the morning light spilling into his motel room. The previous night's horrors still clung to him. A weight in his chest that refused to lift. The scent of fresh coffee filled the air, rich and oddly comforting. He sat up slowly, rubbing the sleep from his eyes, and then he saw her. A woman sat in the chair across the room, legs crossed, her hands resting delicately in her lap. She was beautiful, striking in a way that made him uneasy. Late 40s perhaps, with dark, knowing eyes that never wavered from his. Dirk's pulse quickened. He reached instinctively for his gun, but it wasn't where he had left it. The woman only smiled, tilting her head slightly as though amused by his reaction. His voice was hoarse when he finally spoke. "Who the hell are you?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she took a slow sip of coffee from a small styrofoam cup before finally speaking, her voice smooth and controlled. "Agent Janet Ravenscroft." Dirk narrowed his eyes. "FBI? CIA?" She gave a slight smirk. "Something like that. I've been here longer than you, detective. Watching, studying, waiting." "Waiting for what?" Dirk asked, his voice sharp. Janet leaned forward slightly, her gaze locking onto his with unsettling intensity. "For the blood moon. For the hybrids." Dirk felt a chill crawl down his spine. "Hybrids?" Janet set her cup down on the nightstand with deliberate precision. "They aren't just some urban legend, detective. The creatures you saw last night, They've been here for decades, centuries even. The bloodline runs deep in this town. Every generation, they awaken as the blood moon approaches, shedding their human skins and becoming what they were always meant to be. Hours later, the night sky turned a deep shade of blood red as the harvest moon approached. With little explaining, Dirk convinced Lucy's mother to be bait, luring her daughter out of the woods. The forest held its breath. A quiet before the storm. Then, from the trees, she emerged, slowly and predatory. Lucy. Her eyes glowed in the dark, filled with fury and something else, betrayal. Her long claws twitched as she took in the scene. Her mother was supposed to join them to complete the cycle, but now she was being used against her. A guttural growl rumbled in Lucy's throat as she stepped forward, her claws outstretched. Dirk didn't falter, but inside, he was drowning in fear. She was fast. Too fast. And she wasn't alone. From the tree line, shapes detached from the shadows, other hybrids. Young, old, silent, hungry. Janet raised her rifle and fired a flare into the air, igniting the clearing in harsh red light. The creatures recoiled, shrieking in agony. "Now!" she shouted. Lucy turned to her mother, eyes filled with pain. "You said you'd join us." Her mother sobbed, torn between terror and maternal instinct. "I'm sorry, baby, I can't." Lucy's scream split the air. She lunged. Dirk tackled her midair, both crashing into the underbrush. Claws raked his arm, blood blooming fast. He wrestled with strength he didn't know he had, shouting for Janet. Janet lit the second flare, this one blue. Hidden explosives buried around the perimeter lit up, fire and sound exploding into the night. The hybrids scattered, shrieking, writhing, trees burned. The scent of scorched fur filled the air. Dirk pinned Lucy beneath him. "You don't have to be this. Fight it." But her eyes were no longer human. She hissed one word. "Too late." Then smiled. From the sky, a crack of thunder without clouds. A low vibration shook the ground. In the woods beyond, something massive moved. Something ancient. The blood moon was fully risen. Janet grabbed Dirk, pulling him away just in time as Lucy erupted into full transformation, her bones snapping, elongating, monstrous wings unfurling. "Oh my God, that's not a hybrid," Janet said, eyes wide with horror. "Then what the hell is it?" Dirk gasped. She didn't answer, because she didn't know. As they retreated, smoke rising behind them, the trees parted, the earth shook and rattled with a force that struck them through the heart with terror. And something bigger, taller than the pines, stepped into the firelight. Without command, Lucy bowed before it. "We didn't stop the harvest. We started something worse," Dirk whispered, and above them, the moon bled.